Hello, I'm Anna, the Yarn Randomizer, and this is episode 41, the first episode for 2025, and it is the 10th of January today. And as you can see, it's dark outside, and I'm recording the morning before I'm traveling to go visit my sons down in Texas. And so I'm recording this a day ahead of time and trying to get this in before I have to go to the airport. So bear with me if I'm a little disorganized this morning. This is a knitting podcast, and welcome back, folks who've been subscribed and watching, and welcome to folks who've stumbled across the podcast. And you'll notice I look over there for my notes, and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as the Yarn Randomizer, and also my Gmail address is the Yarn Randomizer. And you will see a spread shop below. That's for the channel. And I also have a mailing address down there as well. And so I think that's almost all the preliminaries, except for the fact is, why is it randomizers? Because I choose randomly for the most part from my stash. I have my husband pull a chip every other week, and that's a yarn I have to figure out what to do with. And so we'll talk about one of those today later on in the episode, the second one picked for this year. And then I believe the usual YouTube please like and subscribe, and that helps other folks find this. And otherwise, let's get right to it. So I bet you're as excited as I am as far as giving away a $100 certificate, because the channel made its first $100. And so the name that got picked randomly was Lori Gray 1900. So if you are Lori Gray, you'll want to get in touch with me through my Gmail address, and we'll figure out what yarn shop and how to get that all set up for you and everything. But it's so exciting. So, and we can talk about this later at Stash Management, but basically for the channel, as income comes in from the spread shop or from the channel and that kind of thing, we're going to rotate $100 at a time. 100 to somebody for a gift certificate for yarn for your local yarn shop, or 100, then next 100 will be for a charity. And that's one thing I'll show, what charity and the receipt for that. And then the third 100 will be for me to pay some of my utilities here. And we'll just keep rotating through it like that and stuff, because I don't expect it ever to be massive amounts coming in. I'm no, was it Mark Rober or Mr. Beast or anything like that? But otherwise, it'll be fun doing that as this channel continues. So now that the preliminaries are done, we'll start with what we usually start with, and that is, what am I wearing? And this is Isabel Kramer's Forager sweater. And so I made this, I think, a couple of years ago. I finished this probably before I started doing this, and this is just a really nice sweater. You see it's got these little details here. Down here it's got kind of a saddle shoulder, and this detail comes down this way. And this is seated here again. There we go. And so this is, you can see it's made out of a yarn called by Vitalana called Ascendance. Now that was a yarn that was through Yarn Crate when it existed as a monthly yarn subscription, but that's gone. I don't think there's any way to get this yarn anymore, but it was an interesting chain plied yarn that had this really great variation in the purples that were in it. And you can see it's a little pilly. I probably have to give it a shave. And so the interesting details here are this here. This is not a cable. This is a kind of a faux cable where you slip stitches and do yarn over and knit stuff together and stuff. And it makes a nice chain that looks sort of like a cable. And it's also got these Latvian braids here. Because this yarn is kind of fuzzy, you don't see the detail as nicely, I think, on the braids, but they were kind of fun to make. I had not done those before. And I think and yeah, this was actually listed as a sport weight yarn, but I used it as a DK. It was fluffy. It was substantial enough to use it for a DK pattern. I'm super happy. This sweater is unbelievably warm. I think it's something about that chain plied yarn and everything, so that even though it's a nice, light, kind of lightweight DK sweater, man, it is plenty warm. So, and of course, it's in my favorite color. But yeah, so that's what I'm wearing. All the information for anything we talk about will be linked below. All right, so that's what I'm wearing. Now, finished objects. Now you need a drum roll on this. And so I finally finished. I had finished my year-long blanket. And so I still have to weave in the ends and block it, but it's almost impossible to show this and how big it is. But I'll put in some pictures that I took here. But now that it's kind of off the restriction of the needles, it is really lovely. Let's see if I can do this. Yes. And so it's, I had one of the pictures I'll show is it's on the bed, on our full-size bed. And so it will definitely get larger when I block it. And so I think there's plenty of blanket here to go on the bed. And so it'll go on the full-size bed in the guest room. So it's just so exciting to get that done. I've got a few ends to weave in, but not that many. I wove in a lot along the way. And so that's it. So you watch this grow for a year, and now it's done. And of course, my next year-long blanket is started. But yeah, this was made out of Lancava Mayaneo, a DK yarn, DK yarn from Finished Knits, which is a distributor. She has some yarns she brings in from Finland and Europe and stuff here to the US. And I picked that out because it's fairly reasonably priced, $75.25 wool and nylon. But yeah, so I could afford doing 16 skeins for a blanket, and I had to get 16 more for the next one. So you'll get to see that coming up in the works in progress. So yeah, so that, I still can't believe it. The size of this make, it was over 4,000 yards of yarn that finally went into this. So yeah, a big finish for the year. I actually finished it a day early, cheated a little bit, but yeah, so exciting. So happy with that. Ooh. Now, let's see, the next thing, there are a lot of projects. Well, not a lot. I've got a handful of projects. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are kind of been sitting and waiting for me to get back to them, because December and early January has been kind of crazy. I had a Christmas Eve cast on, that kind of stuff, which we will talk about next. And so most of this is newer stuff that you're seeing instead of the stuff I've been working on already, but that will all come back as I go on my trip. I'm going to focus on finishing off 2 sweaters. I'm going to see if I can finish off 2 sweaters over the next week or before the next podcast. So we'll see. But first thing up, and for those of you that don't know, this is my pegboard. I use it to hold my works in progress up there. And I don't think I showed this last time, but this was another one of my husband's Christmas gifts to me. Know Your Cuts of Lamb blanket, sweater, that kind of thing. Very cute. All right, now in here is my Christmas Eve cast on, and I've gotten it all the way up to, it's done. It was doing the increases every other row. But before I get ahead of myself here, this is the Campside Classic by Alicia Plummer, and I'm using the yarn as Christmas Confections. It was the Christmas Eve cast on box yarn from Hypnotic Yarn, and so you can see how lovely that's knitting up. And so it's a cardigan, so it's just knit back and forth. That's the inside. So let me try to fold the shoulders over here, and so you can kind of see it's still kind of curling up a bit in the needle. Yeah, so it is making progress. And so I only have 3 more increases to do. So you can see the upper edge of that front of the cardigan and the top of the sleeve here. And so I have 3 more increases to do that are a little more spaced apart than the ones that have been done all along. Let me show at least that raglan increase there. And so then once I get those 3 additional increases done, it'll be time to split the sleeves off of the body and start knitting the body And can't wait to get that kind of set up here. It's hard to show right now in its current form, but I think the best way to go about it is this way. But yeah, so I have to say, this yarn, I've been loving this DK from Hypnotic Yarn. It's got such a nice feel to it, and I love the speckled nature of the colorway. So it's really kind of randomly kind of coloring the pattern. So it's going to be a really fun sweater. And so that, I think, is everything I wanted to say about that. Yes. So that is first work in progress to cover. Now, these next three works in progress are ones that I had not started yet. Before, was it from the last podcast? So let's see. New Year's Eve cast on. That was, okay, New Year's Eve, right here. Okay. So my last yarn pick, random yarn pick from last year, was this stitch together stitch single. Hold on for a moment. I'm back. My husband woke up for an early morning snack. Now that's done. Well, he took care of it himself. I just don't want to record while there's stuff going on around the house. Okay, now back to my Christmas Eve cast on. It was with Stitch Together single. And so I had these two colors, and I believe the one that got picked was the Dune. But I had used that originally, these two together, for a cowl called the Garter Snake Cowl. And I showed this, I believe, last time. And it is a great cowl. It starts with some brioche, two-color brioche that goes to this two-color garter stitch. And you can see the outside looks like this, but you could just as well turn it the other way. The inside looks like this, with more emphasis on the gold color. So what happened was, when I was looking at this pattern, was I realized that the author had a pattern for a hat. And that hat, I'm trying to remember if I started this last time, but whatever the case, yeah, I don't think I had. And so the hat is also a brioche. It's on smaller needles. It has the two-color garter as well. And so it starts with 1.5 inches of ribbing, and it's doing the same transition from brioche to garter that the cowl did, but at a slightly smaller scale. So you can see that. And what's really cool is to look at the inside as well. Look at that. And so it's just a beautiful combination of brioche and two-color garter. And I expect to get this done pretty soon. And this is my last random choice from last year. And it'll go great with the cowl once I have this done. So I was really excited to cast this on and get this complete. And it was a great way to use up what was left over of these yarns. So that one's going really well. I expect to have that finished before next time. So it'll be a finished object for next time. Now, that was the Christmas Eve cast on. Now, on Christmas Day, I started my next year-long blanket project. Let's see, it's this bag here. All right. So this again is using Lankava Myaneo DK, their DK yarn, and it's from Finished Knits. And so this is the Bubbly Blossoms blanket. I'll stick in a picture so you can see what it looks like. And so I've finished the center, which is contrast color 1. The dark green is the main color, and then this light brown is contrast color 2, and then this color cinnamon is the third contrast color. So I've finished section 1 already, and now I'm on section 2, which is going to be a bubble stitch with the 3 different contrast colors. But yeah, so it's off to a good start. So much smaller and easier to manage than the full size blanket towards the end of the year. And I feel like this beginning, the circular beginning, always feels a little off kilter with all those increases in there, but it's off to a good start. And so yeah, so I've got, if you look in my project, I have a spreadsheet. It's about 522 stitches a day for the entire year, and then I'll have the completed blanket at the other end of the project. And so if you're interested in that, check out the spreadsheet. Also, if you look at my other project, the Slipstravaganza blanket, I have a year-long spreadsheet as well, but that was made for 366 days instead of 365 days. And so if you wanted to use that, just keep that in mind. But yeah, so that's it. So it's off to a good start. I'll put down, this is a local Ohio bag maker that this bag is from. So I'll put a link down there for that too. I can't remember the name, but I'll put that in there. Let's see. All right, so that is the year-long blanket. And then finally, this would be my first random choice for this year. And so I cast it on. Last time I talked about a sock pattern that I wanted to use with these two yarns. So let me bring these out. This is another bag from, oh goodness, Stitching Plaza, I think. I'll put a link to that down there below. I really like their bags. So these are the two yarns that I'm using. This is Farm Girl Fibers, which I don't think dyes anymore, but this is a really great DK in this very speckled kind of pink colorway. And then this is from Les Garçons. I got it in they had these little random stash enhancement packs where you'd get 3 random, different random skeins of yarn. And so I picked the mohair pack, and this is their, let's see, what's it called? Their mohair silk. And so I feel like these things go great together. And I started the Sunday morning socks toe up, and that, oh, I did not put who that's by. Just a moment. I always like to give credit. There we go. That is Carly Perrins. Okay. And look at that. That just looks great. So the two are combining really well together. This is a great slip stitch pattern here, and the thickness and cushiness of this knit is amazing. I started with the 3rd size, but when I got up to this point, I could tell it was going to be a little bit too big. So I ripped back down and came back up and started kind of partway up the toe again. So I'm making the 2nd size now. And so yeah, so you can see that detail. It just, let's see if I can focus a little bit, maybe. Okay. But yeah, so it's just turning out great. And there's the bottom there as well. Just a really great speckly yarn, and the combination is just coming together beautifully. So that's the Sunday morning socks toe up, and she does have a cuff down version of that pattern. And so I'll make sure to include both those links for those who are interested. And so that's it for my works in progress. Now my 10 ends a day, a complete fail. I have not started that yet. And so probably will take advantage of it. I just made sure to put the only item that I have left to do that with, my shawl, in this packing with me and traveling down to Texas. So I will, so this, one of my goals this trip is to do that the entire trip. Now, okay, next Yarn Randomizer pick. So when we pulled Yarn Randomizer pick number 2, it ended up being, see if I can get this up here right, this companion fiber. And people who watched last year will recognize this. This was yarn that my husband picked up while he was on a motorcycle trip, and I'll stick a picture in of him in the yarn shop where he picked this up. And so one of his rules is if he picks up yarn for me, he has to pick up 2 skeins. So he picked up 2 skeins of this companion fiber fingering. It's a West Virginia dyer, and this color is rhododendron. Now, I have a specific idea for this, and that is I wanted something that was mindless and would make something with this yarn that maybe my husband would wear, and we'll see. But it's the, I think I have it here, it's the fatigue cap. It's a vintage pattern. And so basically it's just a long tube, 36 inches long, that you sew closed at each end, and you can basically treat it almost in the same way as a musselburgh, but it's long enough to wear as a scarf, but then you can push it in on itself and fold it up to wear it as a cap. And so I'll stick the picture in right there. And so that's what I intend to make with this. Now, the pattern, it wants 7 stitches to the inch, and based on the number of inches that you cast on, it is just 16 inches in circumference, but it will need to be a little bigger than that for my husband. I think it's 23 inch head. And so I will probably do something closer to 20 inches for circumference, but I'm going to knit a tube 36 inches long in plain stockinette of this, and then just finish off the ends. So I'm trying to decide if I'll do a maybe start with a traditional toe-up sock cast on, like the Turkish cast on one side, and then Kitchener it on the other, or if I want to leave those stitches open and kind of bind them off together so there's a very specific seam. But I'll figure that out before I start this. But that's it. Yeah, so that is Yarn Randomizer pick number 2 for 2025, and it was labeled as yarn. It was this 93, yeah, that was associated with it in the spreadsheet. So that is waiting in the wings to start. I definitely have to finish some projects before I start any more. I think I have, let's see, projects. I have 8, 9 projects on the needles. It's not awful, but definitely I'll be bringing a bunch of them to a close pretty quickly. So I'm hoping to have a lot of finished objects over the next 2 episodes, and we'll bring it down to a more manageable amount of works in progress. So now let's see, acquisitions. So let's set these things aside and get to acquisitions. Tossing everything on the floor here. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk about in acquisitions was I have a friend of mine on Facebook who, let's see, oh, that's part of that, okay, who showed a Herbert Niebling lace kind of big piece, like tablecloth kind of thing she had knit. And I just found it fascinating. So I looked around and I was intrigued. So I was able to find, you have to buy these used, but it was the knitted lace designs of Herbert Niebling. And you can see that one on the cover. And then there's some in here that are just extraordinary. So for example, see that? There are just some incredible pieces here, and they're just incredibly ambitious. And I definitely want to do, if folks watching last year will see, I did a couple of doily type pieces. So as an example, here's this one. Let's see, and this is hard to see. There we go. This one that I made last year. And I'm kind of excited about the idea of doing some more of this type of work. So I picked up that book. I got it off of, I think eBay was where I picked it up at. The prices for the used version of this book on Amazon were through the roof. I got a much more reasonable price on eBay, and the book is in good condition. It was a reputable seller, and they got it to me pretty quickly. So very happy with that. And now, haha, yarn. So this is yarn I ordered and bought last year. So this is, I haven't bought any yarn this year, and we'll talk more about that in stash management. But I wanted to go over what I picked up at the end of the year. So I was watching Jolene Knits A Lot, and she was knitting with this yarn called, see that? Yeah, Le Sock yarn. And this is somewhat loosely plied, kind of marled yarn. And when I saw her knitting with it and stuff, I decided I wanted to try it. So I actually found it on sale at the Naughty Goat, Naughty Goat Fibers. I'll link their shop below. But they had this on sale there, and this colorway is Red Mountain. And so this is going to go into my stash as a potential, definitely will be socks. But yeah, I wanted to give it a try. It was on sale for $10.40 a skein. You can see right there. It's yes. Yep. So I picked up that. And then the Fiber Seed, who I really love their yarn, they're an Ohio dyer. I picked up, she has a year-end sale each year. And so I picked up a handful of yarns from there. And I figure it's all balanced out by the fact that I used up 4,000 yards of yarn in my blanket. And so I'll go through those. So first is some, was it Sprout sock? Her sock yarn in this really beautiful color, Mermaid's Tail. Now the nice thing about their sock yarn is these are 136 gram skeins. So they have 510 yards of yarn on there. This is great for a muscle burrow. A couple of these would be enough, would be over 1,000 yards if you combine it with a mohair to make something like a ranunculus sweater and everything. Just great yarn, just great amount of yardage and just really amazing yarn. It's a 10% nylon, 90% wool, yeah, merino wool. And she does a great job with her dyeing of the yarn. Now the next one is I got 4 skeins of this, what do you know, purple with bits of black in it. And so this is called Witch's Brew. And so I got 4 skeins of this DK. I figure I'll make some kind of vest out of it. And then finally I got this worsted skein, and this is one of her half speckled skeins. So it's half solid, half speckled. And this is Harold's Purple Crayon. Just amazing. Again, I have way too much purple yarn, but that's okay. So yeah, and this, I definitely will be making an 1898 hat out of this because it will work up really beautifully in that, I think. So that's it. So that's all my acquisitions. And so finally, let's see, stash management. In my notes, it says 2024. That should be 2025. All right, so I have made no purchases so far this year, but I still want to give away a yarn. I'm going to get ahead of the game a little bit. So we have a giveaway. I should have mentioned that up front. But so it is a yarn from me to yarn. And I think I got this in a kind of a summer package deal. I can't even remember what shop it was from, but this colorway is called, appropriately, Watermelon. And so it is a 75%, 25% superwash merino and nylon and 463 yards. So if you are interested in this yarn, then you should somehow mention watermelon in your comment. Now, I just want to mention that the reason I ask you to do it that way is because if you mention the word giveaway and stuff in your comments, scammers may show up and try to say, hey, you've won, give me your contact information, that kind of stuff. And so trying to gather, kind of get information to be able to scam people. So you just want to say something about watermelon, and that will be enough for you to be considered when we draw it for next time. So yeah, so I think that's everything. I did record a small short video about winding a center pole ball, which I will post sometime this coming week. I meant to do it earlier this week, but it just got really busy here. And then I know I want to record how I shop for yarn on Ravelry, but I'm seeing how successful this microphone works out. So we'll see. It seemed to work just fine for the ball winding video. And so we'll go from there. And then other than that, I hope you're experiencing a fantastic new year so far. It's super cold here and we've had a good chunk of snow. Not as much as some people further south from us, though, amazingly enough. We just had about 5 or 6 inches of snow up here. And I've had a lot of work out shoveling snow. And then, oh, and I imagine it's warming up quite a bit down in the southern hemisphere. So I wonder if you guys must knit summer sweaters down there. But yeah, I'm getting ready to go travel. I'll be posting to Instagram and that kind of stuff. I'm probably going to visit Gage Yarn Shop and probably, oh, what was that? There's another yarn shop down there. Was it Hill Country Weavers? I'll probably be visiting those 2 shops while I'm down there, and try to avoid buying more yarn, but I'll pick up something at each of those places. And I do want to show off to Gage the sweater I made from the yarn that I bought there the last time I stopped at her shop. That was Wind by the Lake sweater. I'll put in a picture of that. But otherwise, I hope you're experiencing a fantastic new year so far, and that you're experiencing kindness and giving it in return. But most of all, I hope you're enjoying your knits.